Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Hangout on Air today with EdTech Team Online. We're super excited to have a special guest with us today. But before we introduce him, my name is Dominic Dines. I've been one of your cohort leaders over the last few weeks, and we've had a lot of fun. And in this unit on project-based learning, we've actually invited one of our friends and an expert on project-based learning from New York. So today we have Jesse Lubinsky with us. He's the Director of Technology and the Chief Information Officer for the Irvington Union Free School District in Irvington, New York. All right, so Jesse, you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing at your school?
Sure. First, I'd like to add more onto that title, so it's lovely.
Yes, please do. I know.
But yeah, sure. So I've actually been in Irvington for probably like 12 or 13 years. I started here as a teacher. I was a math and computer programming teacher here, and then gradually worked my way up to director of technology. So it's been nice to kind of shift into an admin role in the same district where you were a teacher, because you have some of those really good relationships with the staff. And yeah, so project-based learning. It's interesting. So there's a link floating around on Twitter to a bunch of resources and links, just so as I'm talking, you could see those links out there. It's actually bit.ly/edtechteampbl. And just as I talk in reference to some articles, you'll see some links and things there. But
yeah. And Jesse, I actually wanted to mention, I'm glad you brought that up. We have a back channel on Twitter right now, so please feel free to share what you're hearing, what you're learning, using the hashtag EdTechTeamOnline. And then, yeah, we'll follow the chat on there. But the resources have been tweeted out. So thanks, Jesse, for sharing those.
No problem. So, whenever I have conversations about PBL, it's always important to distinguish between projects and project-based learning. They're not the same thing. So generally, when we're talking about projects, oftentimes, like, we grew up with projects as like the culminating assessment for a unit. So we do all the learning, get tested, and then it's okay, let's do a project to show everything we learned. And project-based learning is actually not the flip of it, but you really have like a driving question that's going to drive the work that you do, and then the project uses the knowledge in order to ultimately solve that question. And I think the most important takeaway, I like giving the takeaway right up front. So 2 minutes in, we're having the takeaway. So the takeaway is PBL can look different anywhere and everywhere. So it's not like this kind of thing that you necessarily are doing right or wrong. There's different flavors, and it's going to appear differently at different grade levels and different schools. So even the way our district kind of approaches it, we don't necessarily name it like PBL. There's no district initiative toward implementing PBL, but a lot of the projects and initiatives we do have going on in our district do speak right to that spirit and kind of get to the heart of what project-based learning is supposed to do. And as a district, I think that's because we have several theories of action that kind of drive the decision-making that we do around what we want to see happen in our classrooms and what outcomes we want to see for students. And among them, I just kind of made some notes, but we want them to have rigorous, authentic learning experiences, and we want to do that through this lens of 21st century skills and dispositional thinking. So we're really big from the elementary level on using these habits of mind, and really not only kind of just saying that, but really pinpointing. I was just in the classroom today, and a teacher actually mentioned like empathy and flexible thinking, and when they saw it actually being discussed in the classroom, it was pointed out. So we do a really good job of trying to use that as the basis for the work we do. And through that, we've been able to develop some opportunities for project-based learning, some that happen kind of outside of the classroom, and some that happen as part of the curriculum, which we do. And I think I'll start off with the one in the curriculum, and that's really our STEM program. So our STEM program, we actually use Project Lead the Way, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a national organization that it's the largest like project-based learning STEM curriculum that's available. And we'd had it going in our district for years at the high school level. They have 3 kind of sequences you can go through. They have an engineering sequence, a computer science sequence, and a biomedical sequence. And we'd had that engineering sequence for years in place, and it was almost kind of a lucky coincidence. We found out we were in violation, that we had not been doing a capstone course that we were supposed to do, and through that we said, oh wow, look at all these other opportunities there are for implementing this at our elementary school and our middle school. And so we righted the ship and added that capstone course, but then brought that into our elementary building and our middle school. And what's been great about that is they are actual project-based learning experiences where we select the units we want in the strands we want. So through those engineering, computer science, and biomed strands, we can kind of choose which units we want to do at the elementary level. And there's a overall large problem that has to be solved for each unit, which then drives the learning. So our students are just starting a unit on like pulleys at the elementary school. And yesterday we were in the classroom, and the problem for the unit is they watched a video on like tigers and animals at the zoo, and there's a tiger that is stuck in the swamp, and they have to develop a like a contraption that will get the tiger out without hurting it. So then they've already been exposed to the different parts and pieces, and it all kind of folds into one larger project that happens over the course of the unit that drives that learning. The nice piece is, because we have this articulated STEM experience, we can start to kind of look at other ways of, taking a look at technology throughout our district, and we're not kind of in this lens of how do we do STEM. It's just embedded in what we already do in our schools.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you mentioned elementary and the different levels, because I feel like sometimes some teachers might feel that it's a challenge to fit all of this in depending on what age you're working with.
Absolutely. And so I'll kind of just go right off of that and talk about something that's definitely in the EdTech team circle, something we talk about a lot, but our friend Kevin Brookhauser wrote the book on 20 time in the classroom. Genius Hour is the elementary version of that, and we've been doing that in both of our buildings, and I put a ton of resources in the document on Genius Hour and 20 time if you're not familiar with them. But particularly at the elementary level, Genius Hour can be such a powerful tool of getting students to design their own projects of their own interest that connect with their passion. And you can see in the document I mentioned, one of the things we're trying to do is provide voice and choice for our students. And that's a critical component of project-based learning. Ultimately, by having them connect to the things that are meaningful to them, you're going to see better results in the solutions they develop to those projects. We have one student at our elementary school who, and it's always the weirdest things you would never expect. One of our most kind of successful projects with Genius Hour has been a student created an online marketplace for socks. He's selling socks that he's designed.
That's awesome.
Right, but it's such a thing you never know. And now we're starting to get like district logos on them, and it's really funny what students will take to. You don't know until you kind of give them that opportunity. The way that's manifested itself at our high school is a little bit different. So while we do have a couple teachers who do 20% time projects in their school, we have a couple of opportunities, one inside the classroom and another that's outside, that tie into that idea of 20% time. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term 20% time, it's actually a Google term. It started out, so Googlers, at least for a long time, had 20% of their time available to them as employees where they can work on a project not in their main area of responsibility. And so when you take a look at some of the things that have come from 20% time at Google, so Gmail started out as just a 20% time project, Google Cardboard, a ton of the things that we now assume are just these major Google initiatives that probably were part of their big vision to begin with, started because there was an employee passion for that. The Google Educator Program is another one that started out. So a lot of great things all came out of this idea of 20% time. And so, like I said, while we have teachers doing that, one program that I really love is, it's called the Bridges Program, and it's actually based, I provided a link to the framework that we use to kind of base it off of, but it's for our students who aren't, so high school seniors who need a credit to graduate, and, I don't want to say struggling, but that, you could tell they're going to be in a much better place once they're out in the world, but they're still looking to kind of figure out what it is they want to do. So what we do is provide them the structure to create that project and that opportunity in a school setting where they have to define the project outcome, so what they want to do, what that internship experience is going to look like. In some cases, it's not an internship. We had two students who were convinced they were going to go into the music business, and so their project was to develop a mixtape and market it and go through all the steps. And it's not as simple as just saying that's what you're going to do. You have to do a formal project proposal in front of the principal, the assistant principal, the assistant superintendent, the mentor, the project head, and we all, it's an intensive process of grilling where if the project isn't up to snuff, we're going to call you out on it and make sure that project has clear milestones. Students learn not only 21st century skills, but project management skills, how to manage time, and ultimately come out of these projects with valuable experience that's going to help them as they start to, transition away from high school. What's been really cool about that program is some of our students have actually wound up pursuing careers in the project area that they chose.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I'm actually mentoring one of the students in the program this year whose project is, the circumstances by which I met him are kind of interesting. I'll leave, but let's say he might have been scripting and doing some things on the computer network that he should have been doing. But I always view those things as fortuitous opportunities sometimes to try to make a connection with a student. And so this year he's actually interning with our tech support staff, and we've actually created a bunch of projects that he can run on his own.
Awesome. So you're playing on his strengths and
right. And so I actually just wrote the email
That's
to our admins like, hey, don't think it's weird if he happens to be walking around the elementary school, because he actually has some projects that he's doing for us internally. Probably the project I'm proudest of, though, the one that I think our district's really kind of started to hang our hat on, has been our Student Innovation Fund. So for years, we have, even dating back to when I was in the classroom, we've had these opportunities for teachers to write grants to a local educational foundation where parents raise money. And I was the recipient of several when I was in the classroom. And they're so outdated that I'm almost embarrassed to talk about them. But basically the idea being that a teacher who wants to do a project that's outside the scope of necessarily what the normal budget would support, can write a grant to receive those funds, whether it's a school trip or bringing in a speaker or getting a certain type of technology for their classroom. But notice that the whole time I'm talking about that, it's all teacher driven. It's about what the teacher thinks it's going to be best for the classroom, and then going and getting those funds. And we recognize that in order to see our theories of action through, we really had to empower students to not feel like visitors to their school for 4 years, kind of like they're passing through, and then when they leave, like, we want them to feel ownership over the school during the time that they're here. And so this innovation fund was created by partnering with some local businesses who agreed to put up some money for that initial round. And we weren't sure how many students would kind of come to apply when we did the general interest session. And that first one, we had 50 students show up. And we provided them with some committees to help them through the grant writing process. They essentially the only frame we gave for them was that it had to improve the school community. So notice I didn't say it had to be directly improving the high school, or it was just anything in the school community. And so I linked out to a video of our project ideas from the first couple of years. And I mean, it ran the gamut. You had a lot of projects that were high schoolers wanting to put programs into place to help middle schoolers and elementary students. You had one project I love is we had a girl who went to our local nature preserve and geotagged all the fauna and trees with QR codes, so that not just when elementary classes went through that they can learn more about everything around them, but any family who walked through that nature preserve can now just take out their phone and learn about what was around them in our town. We had a student who helped create a conflict resolution process for students to act out their problems and kind of resolve the issue, so without having to necessarily go to an administrator before doing that. And then we also had one, so a couple students who were like obsessed with the weather. Like they stay up all night watching the weather patterns, and then we're posting it online. And their funding was actually for not just a subscription to some professional websites, but to hire a professional web developer to develop a website for them.
Wow.
To support that. And what happened was they actually won best local website in our county magazine. So not best website created by students, but like best website for the entire county.
It's phenomenal. That's awesome.
And so when we think about how far we've come, this is our third year now, and in year 2 we're having students winning best site for an entire county just off this little idea of empowering students to be able to take ownership of their school community. I mean, you could see the kind of power there is in giving students that opportunity to put voice and choice into the work they're doing.
No, that's great. And thinking, I mean, I know we want this to be student-centered, but as all of our students in the teacher leader cohort are educators, how do you see the educator's role shifting, or how do you see, I guess, trying to start implementing some of these changes you're talking about?
so it's funny, right? With the traditional project, most of the teacher work came at the end of the cycle. It was like we assign the project and then we get the project and now we can assess.
Right.
And here it's a little bit different, right? Because here the work is actually happening up front because you're helping them, guiding them down the path of how to kind of create that project. And in my mind, it's all about structure. Mm-hmm. So students can run with it. They just need help creating that structure to succeed within with their project. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, you want to do this, go off and do it. Right. They still need that guidance on how to do that, right? We're trying to teach them how to be empowered and self-directed learners, but they still do need our guidance in terms of how to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I see you have a ton of resources listed on your document that you've shared with us.
Oh, I didn't finish talking about, yeah. So the one last thing that's, yeah, right. So yeah. Thank you. That was like your cue. So the Student Innovation Fund. So that's actually, we're working with Google right now on developing a case study on that, which will be featured on the Google for Education Transformation Center, and I put a link to that there. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not surprised because it's actually new as of about a couple months ago. What Google's done is they've identified 7 elements of transformation for school districts: professional development, vision, learning, community engagement, culture, technology, and funding and sustainability. And what they've done is they've reached out to districts who are doing really great things within those spaces, and now having that brought to the Transformation Center. So you can go, if you're looking to solve a problem or answer a question for your school district, like even a broad one, like how do I shift culture in my district? Mm-hmm. Well, you can go to the Google for Education Transformation Center and see case studies and examples of how districts did that. So that's a great starting point. I know that's a little bit out of the scope of PBL, but it does speak to the broader question of how do you create impactful change in your school district. So that's a great resource there. I also included a bunch of links to just how to get started with student innovation, 20% time, Genius Hour, and then a bunch of books that I particularly like on those topics. Mm-hmm. So those resources can all be found there.
Yeah, that's great.
Actually,
thank you.
Shout out to Jeff Heil because I did link to his presentation, using 20% time for 100% learning, which is one of my favorite of his sessions that he does.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. And that Google Transformation Center is super exciting. There's
a
lot of helpful things there that educators are often asking about.
The first few case studies that were up there were just like, I was like, wow, like this is such a great resource. Mm-hmm. And it's so, Google's always looking for ways to help school districts, not just through the tools. And I think oftentimes we think of, G Suite for Education. That's really what Google's, help for schools are, and it's really not. Those just happen to be the applications we can use. But in terms of impacting change, this is really one of the best resources they've put out there so far. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to get to tell our story through that medium.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And I realized at the beginning of the call, I forgot to introduce Tracy, who's also on the call right now. She's been manning the back channel for us and just checking to see if anybody has any questions on Twitter or actually on the live feed. So Tracy, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly and then let us know if there's any questions?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Tracy Purdy again. How are you guys doing? Jesse, I just want to point out, I just elevate your teaching on Twitter. It's such a fun comment saying, I feel like I have gone to PBL church and have been healed from my former cookie cutter projects. Love this hangout. So fun. It's awesome. Going to make a difference for everybody. It's just great real life examples, empowering the students, empowering the teachers. And I think some of the questions that have come in, and maybe you can, some people are already connecting on Twitter around this, but just some ideas for Genius Hour in middle school. I know that you shared a lot of projects after this question, but I don't know if you want to add anything to that or point them towards any resources.
Yeah, on the sheet, actually, I put I found a great PDF which had some sample 20% time ideas. And it's just literally a list of ideas. And I'm sure you can take any of those and spin them into your own. There's a ton of resources on here. And actually, I also added some links to Google Plus communities for both Genius Hour and 20% time. So those are great places to join in the conversation and start to ask some ideas. If I had an idea and I wasn't sure if that was something I should go forward with, I would either use the hashtags I listed there for Twitter or go to the Google Plus community. And those are both great places and resources for you to check out in order to kind of dip your toes in and ask questions.
Perfect. And then another question came in asking about if you have used or how you do use alumni of previous PBL projects or to inspire students the next year or the next.
I'm so glad you just asked that because I would have forgotten to bring this up. So I just had a call yesterday, a couple days ago with like an innovation think tank at a school district in South Carolina. And one of the things we were talking about was vertical and horizontal mentorship. So we were talking about potentially creating peer mentors between our innovators and their innovators so that they now have some voices of people who are not even in their local community to kind of bounce their ideas off of. The other one is having our student innovators mentor our Genius Hour students and go and kind of share ideas in the elementary classrooms and kind of provide the mentorship that way. So in terms of alumni of those who graduated, truth is our first round of innovators who are graduating are this year. So that's something we definitely need to think about. And actually we talked about what some of those projects are going to look like as we transition, you know, like the website, for instance, which we funded, those students are going off to school now. Well, what happens with that? And we're still working out those details, but we definitely want to start to foster this community of innovation by having not just people within our own district collaborating, but to reach outside of our district and talk to other students who are asking similar questions.
Awesome. That's great. And I want to just say too, we've got a lot of great comments for people who are watching live, but if you're watching this later, please continue to tweet out your questions. And if you do at Jay Lubinsky, I'm sure that he will get back to you, or one of us will get back to you if you do have another question you want him to answer. So thanks a ton.
Yeah. And Tracy, I did see one other mini conversation that's happening on Twitter, specifically regarding, I guess it was a middle school classroom, but just wondering about how to allot your time. How should teachers schedule maybe this 20% time or Genius Hour? Should it be one day a week, or what did you see has worked best?
So that's kind of the fun of when we talked about PBL at the beginning, how it can take form in any different, you know, number of ways. Mm-hmm. It's really up to the teacher. So you have some teachers who do it one day a week over the course of the year, some who do it for half a year, some who do it every other week. I mean, it really is whatever's going to work for your specific idea and structure. Okay. The two teachers who we have really doing Genius Hour kind of at full blast, one does it in half-year cycles and the other one does it over the course of a full year. And they give some time one day a week. At the middle school level, where you have 42-minute classes, it really depends on whether or not you're looking to there's a lot of kind of factors. One being, is it going to be tied to your subject area? If it is, then you could potentially build some of that work you have to do into that. If it's not, well, then are you sure you're going to be able to accommodate all the other things you have to do? So there's so many different ways to do it. And I would actually say, if you think you have a structure in your head or an idea, I would put it out in the Google Plus community and start to get feedback from other people who've been doing it, and they could really give you some good pointers in terms of whether or not it's feasible or what some of the pitfalls might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, and I think with that, I don't think we have any other questions, Jesse. But right. Thank you so much for joining the EdTech Team Online community. And please check out our hashtag EdTech Team Online to see what kind of conversation has surfaced because of this. And yeah, we hope to see you again soon. So thanks, Jesse.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you soon.